Welcome to Women in Business, the podcast that celebrates the incredible achievements and stories of inspiring women entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Erin Buck. I'm thrilled to have you join me on this empowering journey of women in business. Throughout this podcast series, we'll delve into the remarkable achievements, triumphs and challenges faced by women entrepreneurs who have defied the odds and made their mark in the business world. In this episode, our special guest is Courtney Farrow, Director of Bloom Creative. With decade-long expertise in digital content creation, Courtney kick-started her journey with a blog at just 16. Today, Bloom Creative serves global software companies, creating engaging content across different platforms. Join us as we talk about where she started and what advice does she have for other women in business. Let's begin. Tell everybody who you are and what is it that you do.
Oh, thank you for that introduction. Very kind of you. So I'm Courtney Farrow and I'm the director of Bloom Creative. And basically what we do is do content creation, copywriting, social media management, sort of in most things within the digital marketing sphere and content marketing sphere for an array of clients, but mostly in the software and tech sector. And yeah, that's pretty much, keep it short and sweet. That's pretty much what roughly what I do. So
were you always good at writing and doing that part of the job? So we'll start off with the whole copywriting side of it.
Yeah.
Did you follow the route of a writer through your education? Were you always going to be a writer, or did you go down a different path?
It's an interesting one because I think if you're, even though I write for a living, I never really see myself like as a writer. And I also, when I speak to other writers, if they've got books or, I have this weird thing where I think, oh, you're a proper writer, even though I write for a living technically, so I am a writer. I suppose it's just the pains of being a writer when you can't quite admit it to yourself. It is interesting. I've always been interested in writing from a very young age. But no, I didn't come to this like the traditional route. So I was originally going to do marine biology at university, and I was always interested in that. But I was also got a big interest in history as well. So when I started doing A levels, I completely failed my chemistry A level, and I remember being sat in the classroom like absolutely hating science and like the chemistry side of it, the biology side of it I loved, but hated it, and thinking, actually, the lesson that I'm really comfortable in and that I really enjoy is history. And obviously, some people might be thinking that's completely different to what, marketing, what's that got to do with marketing and writing? But actually, there's so many like transferable skills with history that's led me down this path. So at the same
get the wrong idea, history A level and history GCSE, it's not that you're just regaling facts about history. You have to write big essays.
And like exactly all these transferable skills come into it. So digesting information and then repackaging it into something that's readable and like understandable for modern readers, I guess. But at the same time, I started doing in our hobby blogging. It was maybe about 10 years ago now. I've always been interested in like the online world from when we got the internet, when I was just kind of a young teenager, I guess. Didn't always have the internet. Started doing blogging and continued that throughout doing my degree. I ended up doing a degree in history, continued to do the blogging, not really seeing it as something that was a job, really. I didn't really recognise it. And at the time, blogging and stuff wasn't as big as it is now. Anyway, eventually spoke to some of the bloggers and was like thinking about what on earth am I going to do after graduating, because I knew I didn't want a corporate job, and I ended up sort of falling into the marketing sphere, really. But now when I look back at it in hindsight, I was probably always going to go down some sort of creative and writing route, because like I said, from a very young age I was writing like little books for myself and always had this dream of doing something to do with writing, but it might not be a traditional sense. So hopefully that gives I'll stop waffling on.
No, you're not waffling at all. You were making me think that I read an article yesterday when I was making content for myself that it said one of the myths about blogging and content writing and things like that is that you have to have a degree in marketing and digital marketing and everything like that. And you really don't, because it's a
Mhm.
profession that you can use transferable skills,
Mhm.
and it actually comes in handy to have more than just learning about the stats of marketing. I think it makes you more
Mhm.
relatable to the people that you're trying to get to read your
Okay.
copy.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I thought that was quite good, and it made me feel better,
Mhm.
because obviously I don't have a degree in digital
Mhm.
marketing or anything
There
like
is,
that.
yeah, exactly. There is a lot of people out there who haven't gone down that traditional marketing route. I think, you know, it gives you a background. If I did go and I am kind of an academic at heart, so there's always this niggling thing at the back of my head that thinks, oh, but I haven't got a qualification in marketing. So I'm not saying I've never thought that. But actually, yeah, being on social media and promoting my own stuff from quite a young age, and, you know, for over the past 10 years, it's helped me see like the culture of the internet and, you know, that kind of thing, rather than
You've
just like
grown with
theory
it.
based stuff. So I think it has given me a unique insight, and obviously everyone's path's different. But one thing I do always say I want to do is try and not get a degree in marketing, but do more focus when I've got time within my business to up my sort of certification level, or take some more formal courses, potentially with like CRM, or, you know, I know there's a few digital courses you can do, just so I've got that there as well, like the actual theory as well as the practical. It would
You don't
help me,
worry
I
though
think.
that it's such a fast-paced thing, and
Mhm.
that software and hardware and internet is just zipping along so quickly, that by the time
Mhm.
that you've got accreditation in something, that actually could be no longer needed, because it's moved on so much.
Yeah, potentially. I think that's probably what I tell myself, because I never, I always think it would be good to go back and learn stuff, but sometimes I just don't have the time within running a business and all the other hats you've got to wear.
I'm a
Yeah, I
big
think there is an
believer
element
in,
to that.
I was going to say, I'm a big believer
Mhm.
in, I wasn't very academic, even though my family would say that I was. You know, I did the A levels and I went to university. Um, but I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I found it
Mhm.
really hard to focus on writing my essays for university and everything. What I liked to do was to learn about stuff that I wanted to learn about, and
Mhm.
to research it, you know, and that's,
Yeah.
see, I've got a history thing. I love history, and it's about
Mhm.
researching. So
Mhm.
when I went into becoming, when I started teaching primary school, that I used to say to the children that, you know, like, history is opinion related, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's someone's perception of the time. So I
Mhm.
used to say to them, the best thing you can ever do is go and do your own research and do your
Mhm.
own learning. I'm only here to give you the guidelines. You then need to go
Mhm.
and find out, go and research it, go check that I'm right. And if I'm not right, come back and tell
Mhm.
me.
Mhm.
And I've found that as I've got older, I am, especially with this job, I am, if I'm not working for my clients or doing my own social media, I am researching, because everything
Mhm.
changes, especially on Instagram. Everything changes so quickly that in my spare time, I am studying, and I prefer to do that than to, I suppose, which will probably might go against me, than to
Mhm.
go get an accreditation,
No,
because
it is true, yeah, because if you think about, you know, how, like you say, Instagram specifically, and specific social media platforms, like they're always changing. I struggle to keep up with it. There's some stuff, you know, well, like, you'll know, you'll have mentioned to me, I couldn't even get on this Facebook Live today, if that makes sense. And like little things like that, that just because I'm not doing them every day for clients, like I think, oh, this is a different thing. So it is true, you know, to keep, like I mentioned before, it's so hard to keep up with that internet culture and the different themes and the different trends that are happening. So yeah, an accreditation wouldn't give you that. I think the more sort of formal theories behind digital marketing and marketing, I think that was kind of what I was more talking about. So the ones that
right,
never really change.
yeah.
But specifics on social media and stuff, I think the best thing you can do is just get stuck in and try a few things. And like you say, research, see what other people are doing. Not all the time, obviously, not copying off all the time, because, you know, who knows that they'll be right or wrong. But yeah, get out
I
there and
enjoy
experiment
everybody
yourself.
on
But it is
help.
true. Sometimes it is just it's about learning from other people who are doing it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a formal, you know, qualification or anything. And that's probably why I tend not to. I've not ever done one, because I think, oh, you know, there's this interesting article that someone who's using this platform every day is talking about, or even if it's like a TikTok video or something like that that's 30 seconds, or, you know, that I think, oh, that's a great tool. Like the tool I send you across this morning, it transcribes videos. I found that on a TikTok video, and now I'm like using it within my business. So it can, you know, learning doesn't necessarily have to be sitting down and doing a course in a lecture theatre all the time. So definitely learned that's a good one too.
Yeah, I told you she's a fountain of knowledge, and she does send me messages, and then I suddenly have to go and find this new thing because I'm like, no, that's a good thing. I like it. And then I've been busy today, so I didn't reply, but I am going to be looking at it.
Yeah.
So the next question is about being a woman in business. Or in the line of work, like through education or your business, have you had any negative or positive, or one of each or whatever, because you were a woman?
Yeah, this is a difficult one, because I know you sent me the questions beforehand, so I was thinking about this, and I almost, my gut reaction is always no. Like, everyone I work with is like really positive. I work with in quite a male dominated environment with working in the tech sector, and a lot of my sort of business connections are men, and most of them have been, you know, 100% supportive, and you know that on the surface of things, that I will always stand by that. Some of my greatest sort of mentors and people who have built me up have been men who have helped, but obviously there is some, I don't know, it's hard to quantify, and I think this is the thing with like sort of sexism, the topic of sexism or women's issues. It is sometimes that subtle thing. Maybe it's confidence within yourself, because you feel like I definitely have imposter syndrome, which it definitely affects men as well. I've spoken to men about it, and you know, definitely affects all genders. But you know, it is quite common within women as well. I spoke to a lot of women in business, and it's this, oh, what if they find out you're actually like a 12-year-old girl and you can't do your job? It's kind of that feeling, and that's how I sum it up. And like, I felt like that, you know, I feel like that, and I will feel like that in the future on certain things. And it's not necessarily like it's a disadvantage created by a certain person or a certain gender or anything like that, but it is that kind of challenge that you come across. But yeah, I was trying to think of specifics, actual outright sexism. Obviously there's always going to be people in your life that there's going to be the comments or certain situations where you think, if I was a man, I don't think I'd have been treated that way. So there's definitely been situations like that, but luckily I'm in the position and have the confidence now to be able to like remove those people from my life and realize, I think, you know, the more you go through business and the more even life in general, you don't have to run your own business, you realize that actually those people aren't, if they're not going to be inclusive, you know, they're not really for me. And you surround yourself by people who are going to build you up, whatever the gender. So yeah, definitely, I think there's definitely, even within the past sort of few months, there's been situations where even other people I've told about the situations have said, but if you were a man, do you think you would have been treated like that? And it's unfortunate, because it's then that question of, yeah, but am I just putting myself, am I just thinking gendered? Like, am I thinking, oh, because I'm a woman this? And you can't quantify it. There's no facts there. There's no, yes, that would definitely happen if I was a man. I would have been treated differently. So yeah, it's a bit of a difficult one. Yeah, I think that's my answer on that.
No, I agree. It's sort of like, I was in a clubhouse room this morning, and they were talking about multitasking. And then they got into the subject of, are we trained to believe that we're capable of multitasking better than men? You know, is that true, or is that just something we've been told that we could do? And that opened up discussion. So going with where you, like, people saying to you, do you not think that would be different? You have that whole, well, should I say anything, or am I just being overly sensitive? And I'm making an issue when there
Which
isn't.
is a very, that's a very gendered thing as well, being called overly sensitive or bossy, or, you know, that there's been things that I've read in graphics I've seen that have, like, you know, if you were a man, you're taking leadership. If you're a woman, you're bossy. Or, and I've never personally been called bossy or anything. Definitely oversensitive. Yeah, definitely oversensitive. I've got called that, and or have you let your emotions make that decision for you. That was one that within the last year, actually. And again, it's not like 100% I can say they wouldn't have said that to a man. But, you know, if we're all here now, let's admit it, like, you probably wouldn't have said that. You would probably be amended for your decision making, or commended for your decision making. Not, oh, are you sure you're thinking rationally? Are you sure is this an emotional decision? So I think, yeah, and there is also that question as well. I could talk all day about, like, sort of women's issues, or women in business and stuff like that, and, you know, the representation in business of all different, and that's not just covering women. What was it?
I would say that I'm not a feminist, but
right.
I am married to a man who is, I won't say this often, but quite brilliant, really. He is very in touch with, he always jokes that he's comfortable with his feminine side. You know, he does, because of my health and everything, he does the washing, he does all that. And then my kids have always tried to bring up that, you know, like a feminist kind of attitude, you know, you don't treat women like that and things like that. And then even though I pound it out of my children, not that I pound it because they're grown men now, but, and not that I hit them when they were young either. God, what does that sound like? But Peter still would come home from school with misogynistic statements. Yeah, and it'd be like, where the hell have you got that from? And again, picking it up from their peers. They pick up so much from their peers that even if you're a woman trying to teach your own children that they should not have this stereotype of what women are capable of, and you shouldn't go, is it the time of the month, mother, that kind of stuff. They've learnt it from other people. So it's like really hard. It's do you, like I said, do you accept that, oh, maybe I'm being a bit sensitive, or do you go, actually, I want to look into this, and maybe this would happen if I was maybe this wouldn't happen if I was a man. See,
it's an interesting one as well.
I get on my soapbox when we get on, because I really hate the way that men can talk to women, and I've had many an argument with a man, especially from small villages that I've lived in over the years, that have had attitudes, and you can see my back go very vocal when they start to come out with like that, excuse the language. And I will stand up and go, who are you talking to? Don't you dare talk to me like that.
It's also your own internal misogyny as well. So I definitely have checked, like, and you'll continue to do this with other issues as well, but like, you think to yourself, am I thinking that way because I'm like a misogynist? I think it's a different word if you're a woman and a misogynist. I can't remember the word.
You mean like working on your own self?
Yeah, so like but also about other women, you know, about other women's choices. Like, I think I've done a lot of you know, from being a young, and I will continue to do that, a lot of growth and, you know, learning about other people and how other people live and other choices women make. But when I was younger, you know, you have certain views that you think, actually, me dictating what another woman has done in their life, or me judging someone else for that is actually misogyny, or that's actually not very feminist. Or so I challenge myself all the time on those views and think, am I thinking that because they're a woman, or am I thinking that because this? And you've got to correct and check yourself as well sometimes. I think that's super important. It's not just about, you know, getting men to think differently, it's about getting everyone to think differently. I think that's
absolutely
really important.
It's like that big change that, I mean, we can all pick apart different parts of society, but it's like you say, that part of it that you're thinking, I don't think would be from internally you. It's what you've picked up from society.
100%, yeah.
It's trade you. Oh my God, Courtney, this could be like a whole new series. I knew there was a reason you liked each other. Now,
Hi, I initially began these interviews in March 2021 to coincide with International Women's Day. Through my business, Busy Bee Virtual Assistant, I had been introduced to so many women who had diversified their careers, created their own businesses, and had become more successful in their own rights. My name is Erin, and I founded Busy Bee Virtual and Social Media Assistant Service in the beginning of the global pandemic, June 2020. I had recently had to change my career due to a disability, and I had to give up the idea of conventional working. So I sat and I made a list of what skill sets I had, and from that, Busy Bee was born. So how I help my clients is they have a friendly, dedicated and professional partner in their corner. That's the essence of what I wanted Busy Bee to be. I'm the perfect fit for you if you are a creative freelancer, small business or entrepreneur, and you're getting overwhelmed by the myriad of tasks that you are facing daily. We've all been there, haven't we? Struggling with emails, customer service, website management, and that social media upkeep. My service swoops in to take these tasks right out of your hands, allowing you to concentrate on what you truly love. If you'd like to work with me, head over to my website and press contact. Now let's continue.
Back to you.
No problem. I enjoy talking about it.
The next question was, what advice do you have to, this doesn't have to be female gender related or anything, because obviously there's more than just female and male, but what would you tell any future startups that want to start up their own business like you've done, because you're quite young as well, aren't you? Not that you're young.
Yeah, no, I started freelancing when I was 20, so yeah, I was fairly young looking back, not so much now.
You are, but I don't want to make it sound like you were saying, oh, you're so young and inexperienced, when you've got more experience than me but are younger than me. What advice do you have for 5 years?
I'm trying to think, really. So there's so many different things. I always, if anyone I know is going self-employed or anything, I always divulge all this information onto them. I'm trying to sum it up in one thing.
You don't have to sum it up in one thing. You can give more than one bit of advice if you've got a bit.
I would say, like, trusting your own instincts is really important. I know that's such a cliche, like trusting your gut. But for me, I've made so many decisions based on what I think I should be doing because other people are doing them. Comparing myself to others and sort of going with what the general status quo is, because I think that's the way people want, thinking about, oh, this is what a business owner should look like, and this is what a business owner should act like, and how they should talk and how they should present themselves. And this is what my company should be doing because all of these other digital agencies are doing that. And kind of trying to keep, I have gone through stages where I thought, oh, I'm not doing this, I'm worried about it. But actually trusting my own gut and going with what I want to do and what I feel comfortable with and what's working for me, that's something that I'm always trying to do and reel myself back into, because that's when I'm most happy. When I'm sort of not just doing whatever I want, obviously there's got to be certain rules within that, but yeah, allowing myself to maybe just go with what I feel comfortable with. I think the worst thing is trying to run a business and keeping up with the Jonases, I think the phrase is, and trying to keep up with the next thing, and you don't feel like you're doing it for the right reasons. When I start working with clients and when I've started working on projects that really matter to me, or working in a way that actually works for me, looking like a way that actually works for me, rather than thinking I've got to wear, a pantsuit or like a really corporate dress or something like that, you see. And like that works for some women in business, that's their brand and that's their look. But I had this idea of, you've got to wear suits or, that kind of thing to be a business owner. It took me so long to realise that actually I am a business owner, and like proudly say that. I used to say when people said, oh, you run your own business, I'd be like, oh yeah, just, like not really. But actually I do. So I think that in short, trusting what's right for you and always listening to your own gut, rather than, I'm not saying only listen to yourself. I always get a range of opinions from different people, and like I said, I've had so many like mentors, formal and informal, to help me get where I am, and I will continue in the future. I always get advice from other people as well, but don't get advice from other people from the point where you're just doing what other people say you should be doing, especially if it doesn't feel right in your heart, if that makes any sense. And that's with life as well.
Life, it's a brilliant lesson for life in general. We, my children, and we're very back to children, my kid decided to go to a different secondary school to his peers because his other friends were going to this school. So it was like a split thing. And I ummed and ahed about it. And I remember my Richard, my husband, saying, he will learn and he will do well if he's happy and if he's comfortable. That's where he wants to go. And I've always listened to that, because that was the same when starting this business. I do listen to people's advice, but if I feel really anxious or I feel really sick about doing something because it just doesn't feel right. Yeah. And I've learned now in my old age, not to do it. And like you say, I listen to advice all the times, but I choose when to follow that advice without it being detrimental to my mental health and my own business as it is. So I think that's a really, really good bit of advice.
Yeah, because you can easily get, especially as a startup, you can easily get swept up in reading loads of information about what business owners should be doing, whether it's like actual running the business, or like, do you know, people who wake up at 5 a.m. and they do all this stuff, and that it can be really overwhelming for people to come in and they're thinking, okay, well, that mentor or that online personality says to do it this way, and that online personality says to do it that way, and then you constantly think you're striving for something that doesn't really work for you. Obviously, over time, then it is a learning curve. You want to take that advice on board, but ultimately, I think the most happy you are is just kind of doing your own thing and taking little bits of things from other people, but not having to compare yourself to others. 100%.
Do you find it easier, because I know that you use different people to help. So like I've got a business mentor. I don't know if you've got a business mentor, but I know that you have contact with other businesses that you use for things. Would you say that it's better to actually pay out to have that kind of resource rather than just relying on listening to the experts online?
Yeah, it is an interesting one. I think if you get a business mentor who you feel comfortable with, so I like a lot of things, and it does date back to the history degree and wanting to get loads of different information from different sources. Like I have friends and like people who I've worked with who I would class as kind of mentors, even though we've got a good relationship, because I've asked them for advice, and but they're sort of informal, if you like. And then I've got a guy who he is from a different industry, which I always think is really interesting, that I pay, and he is like I suppose business advisor would be the right word, and he's from a traditional banking industry, completely different generation from me, and offers me a completely different perspective of like what I'm doing. Because I think there is a danger sometimes if you just talk to say the same people who are in your headspace, you've got no one to challenge you on those thoughts or offer something else to the table. So I went with this guy. Again, it was only out of the like knowing him from my network that I went with him, and I was a bit hesitant at first because I knew he was from quite a traditional industry, being banking, completely different to what I've done, but he completely understood and was willing to learn. And actually, even though I'm a completely different business and it's digital and creative, there's so many similarities between all businesses in general. So what I'm trying to get at is, I think it was good to pay. It's good to pay him. I think it's a small amount each month, not small, but it's an investment each month, but it's not breaking the bank.
When I first started out, I made the mistake of obviously not wanting to spend money.
Yes.
And then I quickly learned that obviously, so I've got you that I speak to, I have other people that have their own businesses, but all in different fields. And then I got my business mentor, and it's like a therapist.
Yes, a business therapist.
Richard doesn't have to listen to me go on at them. And he's been listening to me about that course and everything, but he doesn't give me the right answer. But if I go to my business mentor, she could say the same thing as him. Yeah. But for some reason, I can register it when it turns.
Yeah, because the relationship's completely different. Yeah, so exactly. I speak to my partner about stuff all the time, and I've also been in therapy as well during the last 5 years, in and out. So that's a different perspective then. And we have spoke about business issues, and because when you work for yourself, a lot of your own personal, it does tie in, your own personal issues tie into the business. So
like that's syndrome and stuff
exactly
like that.
So I've definitely worked on it from a personal perspective. So I would class her as kind of like part of my growth as a business as well. And then I've got this guy who's more of like the financial side, which I'm not 100% sure. And I also work with an accountant as well. I would say about the thing about and obviously yourself helping me out with VA stuff as well, but I was going to say on that, like spending money, It's like that speculate to accumulate thing. I think Del Boy says it. But at first, yeah, it's difficult when you're starting out. It is difficult to think, oh, I'm going to spend that money, because you don't actually have the money. I've definitely been there where I've been thinking, you know, have I got enough money to put on my electric meter? Like, I'm not in this cloud nine where I think, you know, everyone can spend this amount a month on a VA, or this person can spend loads of money on a financial advisor. Definitely, you know, it's about building that up. I didn't just do that overnight. But once I started admitting to myself that I did need help, that was a big thing as well. It wasn't even necessarily financial, especially when I started working with you. It was like admitting and letting go of the responsibility when it's your own business. And I think that's a big one. And almost, I want to say as well, going back to the women in business theme, sometimes I think women, and there has been research into this, you know, you're a caretaker role, and I don't want to put that on every woman, you know, it's not as black and white as this, but you end up where you want to take care of everything, and you want to be in control, and you want to be, but it's very difficult for me to go, oh yeah, I'll give that a delegate. It's very difficult to delegate. But, you know, if you find the right person, like I have done, thank God, I'm not just saying this, it's been such a nice learning curve for myself to be able to allow people to do my stuff, you know, and help me. And admit me
I'm a control freak.
Because exactly, I'm not a control freak, but I like to be in control, because I think the buck lies with me then. I wouldn't class myself as a natural manager of people, if I'm honest, which you might agree with now you've been working with me. And then thirdly, it is financial sometimes. I would say once you get to a financial point where you could allow someone to help, even if it's bookkeeping, something that you really don't want to do in the business, it just helps you free up that space to do more creative stuff, or maybe you don't like doing marketing and creating and go and hire someone who's good at that, but you actually love doing the bookkeeping side of things. You know, it's either way.
So last question before we finish.
Yeah.
Who has been your inspiration, either in work or in life?
Oh, I was meant to think of one of these when I was going through the question. I have so many different.
Everybody, everywhere.
Yeah, because I don't. I'm not one of these people who sort of like follow celebrities or like idolize those types of people. I have so many different types of inspirations. Like my parents have been one. I know that's cliche, but like they're both you know, worked all their life, like working class, like grafters, if that makes sense, like working all the time. So that they've always instilled a really good work ethic to me. And you know, financial side of things, they've taught me a lot to do with, you know, don't spend stuff that you haven't earned yet and all that stuff. So I think that would be one. I'm trying to think of other something profound I could say here, but I'm really struggling. I'm also inspired by, like, so there's so many people I've met through running my own business and like sort of networking online as well as offline within my own city, and I just get inspired by anyone who's passionate about their own thing. And I'm trying to think of other things, like anyone who is just passionate about what they're doing. I really enjoy writing about, and luckily that's like a big part of my job, is like finding out what people do and interviewing them and like bringing that to life on like through content, and that's what I really enjoy, I think.
You're lovely. So thank you for talking to me.
Thanks so much for having me on, and yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
All right. See you later, Courtney. Bye.